everybody, my name is Elizabeth and welcome back to my channel. So the format of today's vlog is going to be just a little bit different for a couple reasons. But first of all, let me tell you what you'll be seeing, which I'm sure you saw when you clicked on the video. But I went to the rodeo and I had a blast, but a couple things. First of all, I did not record an intro or an outro when I was there. It was brand new, and sometimes when things are new, I'm just like busy like figuring out where I'm supposed to go and you know, all that kind of stuff. And then once it gets crowded, I don't want to like, you know, record an intro. It just gets awkward. So I didn't record it there. And then on top of that, the entire thing had a bunch of like loud music while all the stuff was happening. So, which was cool. It made for a really great atmosphere, but it also means that I can't really use the sound from the video because I'll get, you know, copyright checked. So I will be adding music to it, but I thought, you know, I really would like to like talk about what's going on and explain some of the stuff I saw, which I couldn't do while I was actually there recording. So I thought, well, let me just kind of do it a little differently. I'll kind of introduce it here, and then I will kind of talk about the clips as they go. And so you can kind of understand what I saw and what I enjoyed. So I think that's how we're going to do it this time. So here in Dayton, we have the Fox Hollow Rodeo, which is where I went. And I wasn't sure what to expect because we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I mean, not in the middle of nowhere, but like it doesn't scream rodeo to me. You know, we don't have ranches around here or anything like that. So I thought, how busy is this going to be? How many competitors are there going to be? You know, so I just wasn't sure what to expect. It turns out it's very popular because cars were still pulling in. Like there was a line of cars trying to get in for a couple hours after I got there, after the rodeo had started, and it stayed very, very full. I think you'll see in some of the clips, like I kind of show the crowd at the beginning, and it's like there's a good sized crowd, and then it gets much more crowded. So I have not been to a rodeo since I was a very young child. I have very vague memories, just essentially like enough to know I have been to a rodeo before, and that's about all I remember. The rest of what I know about rodeos is what I have seen on television and in movies. So I was not sure what to expect, other than the just very small amounts of information that I had been able to find online about this place. One thing that I heard about beforehand and then was able to experience was a couple of competitions for children, which I have never seen before. So the first couple clips here are the competition for the very youngest children, and it's sheep riding. And it's basically for young kids who are interested in like bull riding because they see maybe their father, their brother, whatever doing it. And so they're like, I want to do that. And of course, they're not going to put them on a bull, so they put them on a sheep. And it was, hopefully I got some good shots. So you can at least, I don't know about good. They're probably not very good, but hopefully you'll at least be able to get an idea of what it is. But I'll describe it just in case you can't tell from the shots. But they have sheep and they have like a rope around part of them, like they're like a harness or something around like their shoulders. And these very small children are, you know, get onto the sheep with some, I'll call them cowboys because I don't, you know, there are two cowboys that help them get onto the sheep, and they're basically lying on the sheep, like hugging, like basically like with their, you know, cheek resting on the shoulder, you know, they're holding onto the rope. And then the two cowboys let the sheep go, and the sheep runs, you know, 20 feet maybe, you know, not very far, with the cowboys running alongside to make sure the kid stays safe, and then they get the kid off. And I don't even know what to say about it. Yeah, just go ahead and watch, and enjoy. Now, I should also say that all these kids that you just saw, they were all very willing participants. No, there was nobody crying, saying, I don't want to do it. You know, they were all like excited and eager to do it. And they looked like they were having a good time. Now, the second competition for children was called calf riding. And it was... They call them calves, but they looked like small cows. Most of them had horns, but they were much smaller. And so these kids were more like elementary school age, maybe into junior high. I'm not sure how old they were. I'm really bad at judging ages. But they would, get on this calf and ride it the way a bull rider would. You know, they had to have one hand in the air. They couldn't touch the animal with the other hand, and they had to stay on for a certain amount of time, less than what bull riders do. But, I think it was, instead of the 8 seconds that bull riders have to do, I think it was like 6 seconds or something like that. And it was pretty amusing because some of the calves would be very docile, and they'd open up the gate, and they'd just kind of like stand there and then kind of like walk out. And obviously it was very easy for those kids to hang on. And then there were a couple that did buck a little bit. And the kids got thrown off. Like, they weren't hurt. Like, they all jumped right up. Nobody was crying or anything. And again, these are kids that have grown up around the rodeo and the bull riding culture, and they want to do it someday. And so this is, you have sheep riding, and then calf riding, I think, is the next step up. I'm talking like I'm an expert. This is just kind of what I got from watching the rodeo. But yeah, so watch these clips and enjoy. So yeah, that was pretty cute. And they did name winners after both the sheep riding and the bull riding based on how long the kids stayed on. And they also factor in, like, at least for bull riding and I think for calf riding, they also factor in what the animal is like. So those kids that were on the very docile calves would not have got as many points as the kids who were on the more rambunctious animals. And so ones that would have stayed on a bucking animal would have gotten more points than one that stayed on a animal that was just standing there. So both of them had winners named. So after those two things, we did move on to the bull riding, which of course is the main event. The most terrifying event because it has been named the most dangerous sport. And I believe it. I don't know much about the bull riding or rodeo scene, or I know nothing about it. I don't know that anyone I saw today was like a high ranked, bull rider or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know how that all works. They were all thrown. Almost every one of them was thrown. I think maybe only one or two stayed on for the 8 seconds. And there were some frightening falls. Everybody jumped up with a couple exceptions. So even the ones that I thought they just got stepped on, like they were up and fine, or seemed fine at least. And as everybody that I'm showing you, like, hopped right back up mostly. I'll after I show you these clips, I'll give a couple exceptions. But go ahead and watch and try not to be too scared because I think everybody was fine. Yeah, so it was quite exhilarating. Now I have seen some bull riding and stuff on television, and I know that it can get even more, I guess, frightening, for lack of a better word. I know that what I watched was comparatively mild to what it can be like, but there were still some quite alarming moments. And there were three that come to mind, and one you saw, and one you saw for sure. I don't remember if I caught the other two on camera or not, but we'll start with the clown. You, I'm sure, all saw the clown get thrown into the air. If there is a more correct term now for rodeo clown, I apologize. I don't know what it is. In my head, they're rodeo clowns, so that's what I'm going to call them. If you're a rodeo clown and you should be called something else, I apologize. Anyway, so that the people that run around and distract the bull after the rider has been thrown so that the rider can get to safety. That's what I'm talking about. He got thrown into the air by the bull. I thought I had just recorded someone's death on my phone because I was recording and I was so scared. And he popped right back up and was fine. And that happened early in the bull riding, and he continued the rest of the time. And I was like, hey, good for you, man. But I was so scared that I had just, and if I had recorded his death on my phone, you would not be seeing it. I'm not that kind of a person. I do not want to gain views by posting someone else's misfortune. But as soon as I saw him pop right back up and he was fine, I was like, oh, I can use that. So yeah, now there were two others, bull riders that, scared me because they didn't get up right away. The first one was, as soon as I realized he wasn't getting up, I'm pretty sure I stopped recording. So I don't think you would have seen that. And I'm not even sure if I knew which one it was, but he was thrown and he laid there. And so the medics and everything came out and they brought out like the board. They didn't have like a real stretcher on wheels, but they had a board like to carry people off. We thought that they were going to carry him off, and all of a sudden he just popped up and walked off himself. I think that he was kind of knocked unconscious, or at least like really dazed, and then all of a sudden kind of came to and was fine. I mean, concussion or whatever, I don't know, but like he did get up and walk off on his own. Now later, there were kind of like two halves to the bull riding, and there was a second similar situation much later. A woman was thrown and they did carry her off. They didn't make any kind of announcement like how she was doing or what really happened other than she got thrown from a bull. And so I'm not sure what happened to her. I did not record any of that, of course. But that was the third one, and the one that I'm not sure how she's doing. Or if it was serious, or if she was just kind of, maybe she broke something. I'm not sure what happened with her. But yeah, like I said, they announced several times, and I have heard this prior to going into this rodeo, that bull riding is considered the most dangerous sport. And even watching at just our little rodeo rink here, it earns that status. So about halfway through the bull riding, maybe they did over half the bull riding, and they kind of took a break from it and did a couple other things. The first of those things, I don't know what the actual term for it is. I'm going to call it synchronized riding, because I don't know the actual term for it. But four or five horses and riders came out and kind of did like a synchronized riding routine set to music. And they sort of just like, they were carrying flags and they rode around the arena and kind of wove in and out of each other and stuff like that. It was fun. I've seen similar stuff done better. So it wasn't like, wow, that was awesome. It was just like, oh, this is, a nice break from all the carnage. So that I'll go ahead and show you a clip of that right now.
thing they did during the intermission was they brought some people from the crowd down to win some money, and they did it by having them chase a bull around that had some kind of like a rope or something tied to its horn, and the person who grabbed the rope won the money. And I was so completely surprised because it got terrifying. So yeah, watch this.
And then after that was done, they did the barrel racing, and that was pretty fun. It was very quick. Like, the bull riding was taking a long time, and a lot of that, I blame on the cowboys. I don't know if that's the right term, but I'm going to call them cowboys. The bull riders. They would be like sitting on the fence of the pens where they get onto the bulls, and there are two announcers, and the announcers kept being like, "Riders, get on your bull," like so many, like over and over, and they'd just be sitting. So there was always this lag between like one bull rider and the next, because the competitors were like watching the riders instead of like getting ready for their turn. And so the bull riding took a long time just because the bull riders were not getting ready to go. Anyway, we did not have that problem with the barrel racers. They came out all at once and kind of like rode around the arena and kind of like warmed up their horses and all that kind of stuff. And then they set up the barrels, and then they did the racing, and it went very quickly because all the barrel racers were ready to go and on top of things, and when it was their turn, they were ready to go. So I will just leave it at that. But it was just kind of funny to see the differences in the bull riding and the barrel racing. And the barrel racers were like, "Yep, my turn. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready." And the bull riders were like, "Is it my turn? Who's going next?" Anyway, but it was fun, and it was some of them, I know nothing about it, but some of them were very fast and seemed good to me. But then there were a couple at the end. It seemed like they were new to it. I always enjoy seeing people like pick up new hobbies and trying new things, and this is, you get better by participating and doing it. And so I did enjoy seeing all the different level of talent within the barrel riders. They did have one more round of bull riding. But before that, they invited everybody down into the arena to do some line dances, for lack of a better word. And literally almost every single person went from the stands down onto the arena and did a bunch of dances, a bunch of group dances. Most of which I don't know. I'm not a big dancer just because I'm not very coordinated. And because I was there by myself, I would have had to take, my bag and my cane and everything with me. And I was just like, I'll watch from the stands. So I did. But the very first song that they played was the only one I actually knew the dance to. And it was the Cupid Shuffle. So even though I am not really a dancer, who doesn't know the Cupid Shuffle? So when I realized that was the song, I stood up in the bleachers and I was doing the Cupid Shuffle. So yeah. I'm going to see if I can get it past the copyright censors, at least parts of it. But if not, just know that what you're watching right now is the Cupid Shuffle, and, regardless of what music I end up putting with it. Dancing was over, they did then continue with bull riding. It continued. Honestly, I was determined to stay till the end, and I ended up leaving early because I think they only had a couple more riders to go after I left, but it was after 10 o'clock. I had been there since 6, and I was like, you know what, it's enough. I don't need to hear the winner announced or anything like that. So I did end up leaving when they still had maybe two or three more riders to go. So go ahead and take a look at what I recorded after the dancing, the last little bit of bull riding. So would I recommend going to the rodeo by yourself? Yeah, I would. The atmosphere was great with the music and the announcers, the excitement of it, and at the same time kind of terror, but it was very exciting. And then just to see that it was kind of like, I don't know, kind of a family thing, with the kids who wanted to be there and get involved, and it just felt like a very like a community atmosphere, like I feel like I'm not a sports person. I don't hardly ever go to any kind of sporting event. But there is always this very, contentious and almost an animosity between different teams, and that's never my vibe. While I enjoy playing games and kind of being competitive and, wanting to win a game and stuff like that, I just cannot relate to the bitterness, I guess, the way with that kind of surrounds like some sports rivalries. And so I just don't choose to participate. But this felt, even though it was a sport, the bull riders didn't feel like, I mean, maybe it was going on behind the scenes or something, but like nobody was booing their least favorite bull rider. Everybody is on everybody's side. And I think that is because it's such a dangerous sport. It is, how good can this person do? It is, everybody's kind of rooting for everybody else because you want them to do well and you don't want them to get hurt, and I like that vibe a lot more than I hate that team, they're, and I don't like that. I don't want any part of it. But this kind of sport, even though it is so dangerous, I did like the community feeling that just kind of pervaded the entire arena. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. In addition, I think if you are able to just kind of relax and enjoy the vibe, like if I would have been a little more healed and wanted to go down and dance, or if you're by yourself and you feel comfortable like going down and dancing, with a whole group of people that you don't know, do it. Even if you want to dance in the stands like I did, or, sing along. I actually had several conversations with the people sitting around me, which is not, that normal for me because I do tend to be quiet. Now, I will say that several of those conversations actually revolved around me recording, because they saw me recording essentially everything. And a couple different people asked, like, just out of curiosity, like, oh, are you like with the media? And I had to say, well, no, not really. But I did get to tell a couple people about my vlog. But that's actually the first time anybody's ever asked me about it, because usually what I'm recording is I'm moving around more, no matter what I'm at. If I'm at a museum or the Renaissance Festival or whatever, I'm always like going from one thing to another. So I'm not sitting by the same people for, hours on end. But in this case, I was sitting right next to the same people all night. And when they saw how much I was recording, one lady asked me if I had like a daughter or something that was competing. And at first I was a little wounded and I thought, do I look that old? And then I thought, I'm 40. It's not that unbelievable that I would have a 20-year-old daughter that was participating. So I kind of had to just kind of like reassess and be like, okay, I'm not that young anymore. So, but then I explained what I was doing, and someone else asked me a similar question later on in the night. But but everybody was very friendly, and it was, just a good atmosphere, not something I generally expect from a sporting event. And I think that's why I liked it so much. Well, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. If you did, give it a like and a subscribe, and go ahead and follow me over on Instagram at Lead the Life Vlog, and I'll see you next time. Bye.